Happy Memorial Day. So in this video, I want to go over some of the best trade setups, in my opinion, just from the setups that I typically trade from Friday, the 22nd. And there wasn't a whole lot going on. I was watching a handful of names, but when I go back and review and look at everything, these are the names that I think set up the best. And I'm kind of just going to go over my thought process and I missed some of them, where I would have taken the trade, where stops would have been, just to do a review like I normally do. And kind of, a lot of times after the trading session, what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll look at charts that, some of the technical patterns that set up that I like to trade and almost, go through as if how I would have traded them, take a screenshot and then save them into a folder. And this is what I do after every trading session, just for kind of the memory, right? And the patterns that I like to trade, and to be able to constantly just get better. And it's pattern recognition, where when you see the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, it starts to get a little easier to kind of take that trade real time in the future. So this is just going to be a little review, kind of how I would go through it. And there wasn't a whole lot going on Friday, but just some of the names that I think set up really well. So we'll start right here, Roku. So Roku got downgraded and it gapped down. And then also looking at Roku on the daily, things kind of changed. This thing was pretty strong, and then, it gave it up, and it started to show that sell, and it even came under, these are just some moving averages I use, the 9, the 20, the 200, and the 50. Just a handful of moving averages just to get a guide on direction and maybe some technical levels where things will stop, or maybe where the trend will change. And Roku got under the 9-period moving average for the last handful of trading sessions. And then even, it's a pretty big level right there, right around 112. So once it gapped below that, looked pretty weak on the daily. Maybe this thing can get to the 50. Maybe it can fill this gap right around 96. Who knows what it can do, but just short term, I see this and I think it doesn't look great. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are kind of stuck in this thing, and it could have some downside momentum. So now, just some basic things I do: jot out levels, pre-market low. These are a couple off ticks, but we'll mark it anyways, pre-market high. So now break it down to a 1-minute chart, and these are just basic moving averages. I have the 9 exponential and the 20 simple. So I don't like to use too many technicals, but just some of the basics. And some setups that I like are the quick opening range break. So have a couple minutes of relatively tight consolidation, and then ideally continuation in the direction of the gap. So Roku gap down. This first candle was a little crazy, so I ended up staying away from this, but I should have kept it on my radar. Like, that's a huge wick of a candle. And when I see something like that, it lets me know that price action is a little nuts, and I sometimes just avoid it because I want something to be a little cleaner. So I ended up not really paying attention to this. And once again, I shouldn't have done that, because here's a big 1-minute candle. Look at the low. The low is 111.51, and pre-market low is 110. So here is an example of an opening range break that happens pretty clean. Now, you don't always get them super clean, but let me zoom this out right here, right there. So big green 1-minute candle, and then it starts to stall out and it starts to roll over. So here's how I would have traded it. I would have waited. I've taken quick opening range breaks before. I try to let, at least 3 to 5 minutes of consolidation go by, because if you take trades really fast off the open, sometimes they rip against you pretty quick and it doesn't feel good. You take a big loss pretty fast. So ideally that 3 to 5. And this is big green candle, nice red candle, clearly shows that it's starting to slow down, right? It's starting to roll over. And then the crack of the prior candle's low, so right around 112. You got the whole number. You got the movement in the direction of the gap. You do have some news. Not that upgrades and downgrades are the most important news in the world, but they do create some momentum. And trying to anticipate the low a day break. So trying to get an entry is what I'm trying to do prior to that break of 111.51. So probably once this thing cracks 112 and starts to speed up, short. So 111, 111.80s, 111.70s maybe if I'm feeling really good and I'm able to anticipate this quick, maybe just before 112. And I would have risked off that candle high. So 112.51, just because, I want my trades to go quick or just get out and then I can reevaluate. And once this thing really falls apart, I've seen this pattern a lot. It should go fast. So I don't think that I need to put a lot of risk on. Definitely not risking high a day. That's way too far away. I don't really want to risk the prior candle high right here, that 112.50. That's where I would have risked. And then clearly this thing goes pretty quick. Now remember, I'm a scalper, so I'm not going to hold this too long. This thing gets the quick break, maybe short, 111.80s, 111.70s, and very quickly this thing gets down to 110. What is the low of this next candle? That low is 110.21. That's a fast move. You're up over a point in 2 minutes. A lot of times I take that on a couple hundred shares. It's a quick move right off the open, and you're right pretty quick. That instant gratification, I know that you can, holding your winners is cool. I like to take the quick moves, especially if it's a quick opening range break. The holding time is going to be quicker for me. So clearly this thing sells off, breaks pre-market lows, and then finally consolidates. And then there's a little bit of battle between buyers and sellers. So that was the first clear setup that I saw on Roku, which was great. And now here, so that's the first setup I like, a clean opening range break. That's in my playbook. And I did a video on this prior of my playbook. And then here's another fantastic setup on Roku. So Roku, a fight between buyers and sellers. That was a big move, really fast. Kind of have to let this thing cool off and then see who's going to continue to take control. And what do? Clear consolidation. We end up holding below pre-market lows. Here's the low of the morning session. So as of to this point right here, the low is 109.11. So the next setup that I like is, I just made the name up, is I called it a technical level break momentum scalp. So 109.11, that's the low a day. So what I like to see is, and we'll get this pre-market low out of the way, just so this is as clear as possible. So I like when something has clearly chosen a direction off the open, and then now, if I didn't catch that opening range break, wait for a good chunk of time to go by, a good chunk of consolidation, and then have that technical level break momentum scalp setup. And this is exactly what I mean by it. So right here, as you can see, this thing kind of forms a pretty tight wedge pattern just above the low of day. So I think if this breaks low of day, there's going to be more momentum. But I don't want to just take the break of low of day. I want to try to get in prior to that. I didn't take this trade, but I'm analyzing it as if I did, what would be the best way to take it. So this is beautiful. Real tight wedge pattern below the moving average. I do like when it gets below the 9, because even though the 9 can be pretty short term, when it catches it and you get and you can get an entry close to it, or I can get an entry close to it, a lot of times you see those moves happen pretty fast. So this thing breaks that wedge right around 109.50. Take the break of the wedge is what I would have tried to done. Maybe get short 109.40s, 109.30s, anticipating that low a day break. I want to be in prior to that. So if for some reason it doesn't break, I don't take too big of a loss. And if it does, I have some cushion. So this thing goes, I would have risked off of this little pivot high here. That pivot high is 109.96. So risking about 50, 60 cents. That's pretty tight. I want my risk later on in the day to be a little bit tighter than in the morning, because in the morning things are moving a little faster. And what does it do? Breaks low a day and gets the follow through, hits a low of 108.10. Catch over a point. And I don't expect the moves later on in the day to be as big. Sometimes they are, sometimes they get a lot of follow through, but my expectations are that quick opening range break off the open. Usually the move is a lot bigger than 2 hours later. So if if the move I can expect to get is $2 off the open, then I'm going to think maybe 50 to $1 later on. So I'm not holding for some massive, gigantic win. But Roku ended up being, this was clean. Super, super, super clean. So that's that setup. This has both the setups I'm looking for, the clean opening range break right there, and then the technical level momentum scalp break. So some sort of wedge pattern that's created and breaks the wedge prior to that low a day. give it a shot, has some follow through. The other name, Nvidia. So Nvidia has been a beast. This thing, I feel like every day when this thing sells off, there's some dip buying that comes along the way. And it was a little crazy off the open, so I didn't really see anything that I liked. I did end up taking this for just a quick little scout. No real pattern, in my opinion, off the open, and then just sells right off. So there's nothing, I don't see anything there. But then we quickly start to get bought up, and it was super strong. So here is what I see. The high was 359.48, right there. Got to change the drawing tool. So 359.48 right there, and then it gets real tight. It's above the 8. Pattern starts to get real tight. This is the technical, the second pattern that I like, and they're all going to look similar. They won't look identical, but just that similar pattern, the pattern recognition. The technical level break momentum scalp. Nvidia is strong on the daily. You look at Nvidia on the daily, this thing is an absolute beast. So trend is up, and this thing starts to get real tight. Now it's about finding a good entry, and right there, I think I ended up taking this right around this area. I got like a really quick scout move. But here this is a beautiful setup. So ideally, somewhere around there, looking for a good entry. So the high of day, that's the technical level. We didn't break it up here. We pulled back to the 9, start to move higher. You know, I like for when I can get entries at whole numbers prior to the high of day break, just because that's where a lot of liquidity can be. So you see aggressive moves from that sometimes, especially if there's some size on the ask and it gets taken out really fast. You can get very fast pops. And even though this move doesn't look big, here is the technical level break momentum scalp setup that I like, and very quick follow through. So, you know, if I'm able to get a really good entry, which sometimes I do, sometimes, you know, chase a little bit, 359-ish, maybe just through 359, just before that technical level break, maybe 359.20s, 30s, and it goes from 359.20s in the next candle to 361. What was the high? 361.13. So you get about $1.50 move in 1 minute. I take that. I'm out, especially since it's later in the day. If I was able to have a little bit more patience and can hold some winners, this thing ended up hitting a high of over 362. So about a 3-point move, which is fantastic. You know, on such a shorter term, those are solid moves. Those are really, really, really solid moves. So that's I didn't see any opening range break on this, but that's the technical level break momentum scalp setup on Nvidia. And then there was one more. So we'll just clear all this out. And on PayPal. So PayPal, strong daily. Once again, strong daily, held its earnings gap. The trend is up. So I don't want to be short in this thing. I want to wait for levels and patterns to set up to the long side. And then obviously when things get really extended, it's a little bit of a different story. But for right now, PayPal going into this day, focus on the long side for me. And I didn't take it, but this is just something that, you know, going through my head, how I'll play it out. 149.68 was the high day. So as you can see, there is the high day right there, 149.68. Not a lot going on off the open, in my opinion. So now, if there is no clean opening range break, now I'm waiting to see if there's going to be a technical level break momentum scalp setup later on in the day. Have to be patient, and it requires some time. These don't set up sometimes for, you know, at least an hour. So I have that setup quick off the open, and then the one that's a little bit later on in the day, rather than being, you know, so active in between. Try to have the 2 time periods of in the morning and then about 30 to 45 minutes plus. And this is, check this out. Nice big move. Morning high is set, consolidates, buyers still in control. And then we start riding some of the moving averages and we get real tight. In my opinion, this is the setup. This is where I like it. Right there. 149.60. That would be my trigger. Real tight. What's the pivot low? That pivot low is 149.38. So risk is real tight little channel. That's exactly what I want. I don't want the price to be too far apart, so risk is really far away. Only risking about 30 cents, 25 cents through 149.60, trying to anticipate that high day break. Nice candle, breaks high a day, and this thing goes boom. I don't hold long. So from 149.68 up into about 150.20, you get about a 50-cent move, which Like I said prior, that 50 cents to $1 is what I expect on these later in the day trades. And PayPal is clean. It obviously went even higher, but I'm not hanging around this party that long. I take the quick 50, take the quick dollar, and I'm happy with the move. So that was just the best trade setups of the day on Friday the 22nd. And I like to do reviews like this, and I'm going to start doing more just so that way I can make sure that, once again, pattern recognition, focus on the setups that work best for me. Those are the main two that I like: the clean opening range break, and then the technical level break momentum scout. And on this day, Roku, Nvidia, and PayPal were all great. The only one that I ended up taking advantage of was Nvidia, and then I just ended up walking away because I didn't really see anything great. And that's pretty much it. So it's Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully everyone's having a good Memorial Day. And I will see you later.